Okay, hello everybody. For people that don't know me, I'm Puleo. I'm a sales engineer at Bitdefender. So today we're going to talk about Bitdefender. Could I just have hands up who's used Bitdefender, seen Bitdefender? Nearly everyone? One or two not, so good. So I'm going to talk about the company, why this is important so you can get an understanding of the technology that we have and how this can help you protect your environments. We're an endpoint security company. We focus on protecting physical machines, virtual machines, cloud workloads, and we already heard from the guys from Rubrics about ease of management. This is very important to Bitdefender, and I'll hopefully show you some of this. Got a demo video, give you a live demo as well, some of the capabilities, some of the integrations we have with VMware, and any questions as we go through, or if you want me to focus on something specific, please kind of let me know. There's a lot of information to talk about, so I want to make sure it's useful for you. Okay, so Bitdefender, just a two-minute overview. We're a Romanian company. We're founded in around 2000. We've got lots of employees around the world. Around half of these are based on research and development. So in Romania, we've got three big offices where most of the product is developed. So all of the product is our own. It's our own technology. We've got lots of patents, and I'll go on and talk about that as we go through. More recently, we've had a HQ in California. So the last 2 years, I've been with Bitdefender for about 18 months, and we've rapidly grown our presence in the US, inside sales, outside sales, etc. But we basically have offices or points of presence in pretty much every country of the world now. We sell through resellers as well, so we've got a lot of partners, resellers that would deliver our technology, such as Computer World. Now, this is something that I think is Bitdefender's best kept secret, unless you've seen one of our presentations. We actually protect 500 million endpoints around the world, which makes us the biggest endpoint security vendor. We have the largest security delivery infrastructure in the cloud. Now, this is important because the more machines we protect, the more information we can gather about threats that are out there. And we use this information from each of the machines that we're protecting to correlate and be able to provide protection to the whole network. We call this our global protective network in the cloud. It's actually, we have some security services in AWS. We've used AWS for about 6 years now or so. Out of these 500 million endpoints, about 60 million of them or so are managed in our public cloud. Then we have our own customers that have on-premise deployments. We also have some consumer line products, but also we have lots of OEM partners. So we have over 100, but I think it's about 150 now, which would be nicer, 150. And these are actual companies that are using Bitdefender technology in their own products today. And there's lots of big vendors that we can't talk about publicly, but some very well-known vendors are using Bitdefender technology in some form or other in their own product. Now, there's lots of technology. From a technology standpoint, we've got some first. We've been using machine learning for 10 years or so. I'm sure you hear vendors or in the press, social media talking about machine learning. I don't know how many webinars I've seen on machine learning in the last 6 months, but it's a common theme. Bitdefender have been doing this for a long time. Machine learning has been around 40 odd years or so. We have some unique algorithms that we created, and these are designed not just to help secure your machine, but to help reduce the impact of securing the machine. Because often, and this is one of the key points of Bitdefender, we're looking to protect against threats, but not increase the overhead, on the machine you're trying to protect, which is increasingly what happens with security products. So all of this is publicly available information. There's lots of white papers, some cool white papers you can read about different technologies. For example, we have something called Bitdefender Box, which has been released in some countries around the world. This is an Internet of Things device that you plug into your router at home and protects your fridge from being hacked or something, or your TV from being bricked, which is more and more common now that, connected devices, there's billions of them. We also have some hypervisor-based technology, which is rather than securing at the endpoint layer, we're protecting the memory at the hypervisor layer. This is currently for Citrix, and we have a release this month actually for KVM hypervisor. so not VMware.
Was there a time frame for the VMware release for the hypervisor protection?
No, unfortunately not, no. So we developed it with Citrix, so we used and created an API with Citrix which allows us to basically introspect the memory outside of the operating system, so it's agentless, and it allows us to look for memory violations. So we're making sense of all the raw memory pages, seeing what's happening, if somebody's trying to get some code executed by misusing the memory space. We can see this. It's very unique to Bitdefender. Nobody else has this. VMware, we're a partner with VMware. We have some integrations with VMware. We have a new one that we can talk about today as well. We're now supporting VMware Cloud on AWS. So I'll briefly cover this off. But the hypervisor introspection, VMware have their own security layers with NSX and things. It's it's not something in the near future that we'll be doing. Okay, so the platform. So I know Chris uses Bitdefender. Anybody else use Bitdefender here? No? Oh, okay, yeah, good. Yeah. Two more. So Bitdefender, the business platform, we call this GravityZone, and this is the name of the single management platform, which allows you to manage different types of environment, different cloud workloads, physical devices, mobile devices, data center infrastructure, etc. Also we have a nice relationship with Nutanix, for example. Does anyone use Nutanix? Heard of Nutanix? So Nutanix, hyperconverged infrastructure, we actually accredited by them. We're a partner with them, and what this allows us to do is, first of all, they have a marketplace which is called Calm, which is about their software automation and management. So we can deploy the GravityZone management platform automatically with a click of a button in their management platform. But we can also, we're going to very shortly have an integration with their management platform, which is Prism. So we'll be able to see the inventory of machines, apply policies, protect machines automatically on the fly when they're created, for example. So this is very similar to the VMware integration, which I'm going to go through today. So we integrate with vCenter. You can see a live inventory of machines. You can apply policies to resource pools, for example, clusters, etc. So software defined, we're from the ground up built for this type of environment and hyperconverged infrastructure. Also private public cloud, we work across any type of cloud. We have some integrations with AWS, for example. We have some planned integrations with Azure as well, and physical machines. And the nice thing about this, you can manage any type of device from the single pane of glass. So if your interest is data center, we're good for this. If you have some mobile devices, some cloud, bursting into the cloud, we can help with this as well. And it's all a single agent. There are some agentless technologies we have which integrate with NSX for VMware.
So if I'm on an iPhone, what kind of protection do I get?
That's a good question.
Are there many viruses for iPhones?
Yeah, I mean there is malware for iOS. I think with most vendors that protect mobile devices, so we focus on security for the mobile devices. So we can do things like security profiles. We can force password complexities, location, and wipe. It's fairly limited for Apple devices. Apple really they don't allow you to do an anti-malware for their operating system, for example. They have a very controlled process on applications that are allowed to be on the App Store. You can only install applications from the App Store, for example. So they have their own security measures in place. Android is a different story, and Bitdefender have some strength here. We have an award-winning anti-malware product which allows you to, check any application that's been installed. At the point of install, we will scan this. We also have some URL inspection, some ongoing monitoring on the device as well. We actually do very well at this without draining the battery life, because some of these solutions, heavy impact on the device, the usage of it drain the battery. So
who's got company phones that they manage that are Android? Anyone?
We haven't done very many of the mobile devices because people are tending not to really look at it. I mean, a lot of customers lean towards using iOS for the mobile devices, and because the the vectors of being able to actually put something malicious onto an iOS device without it being jailbroken are pretty limited. It's got to be through the App Store.
Yeah.
I've heard of a couple of instances where there have been apps published to the Apple App Store, which were created using a cut down SDK development kit. And that SDK development kit was not the official Apple one that the developers were using. And the download that they'd actually gone, they'd used an unofficial download. It was basically a cut down version of the SDK from an unauthorized source, and that had malware in it.
Right.
And it then embedded malware in all of the apps they developed with that kit. It was only on the store, but Apple did miss it, to be fair, and it did get onto the store. But it was shut down within 16 hours, I think it was, and it was predominantly China that was affected. So not too much of a concern for us. But that's the security with Apple is based on the investment that Apple have made themselves. So you can leverage some MDM functionality, and probably shut up and let Liam carry on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. So regarding Androids, there are solutions out there that are specifically for managing mobile devices. Do things like containerization of data, applications, deliver your business applications separately in a container. We don't do this. We're looking to secure the device. We actually have had some customers that have purchased the Bitdefender solution just to add anti-malware and the real-time scanning type capabilities, alongside another vendor, which you can imagine the big three mobile device ones, those type of vendors. So they often don't have the anti-malware capability in them, these solutions. They're more from a management perspective, remote wipe device location. Now for iOS, we can do this. We can do jailbreak protection, for example. So it's very important to know that your enterprise devices aren't jailbroken, because they can install what they want on them and potentially something unwanted or malicious, etc. Okay. So we have this single platform with a single modular agent, so you can add in different things dependent on your challenges around security, and you may already have some measures in place. We have lots of different solutions in here, so we can do things like whitelisting, reduce the attack surface, just allow known good applications to execute is a good way really to protect yourselves, particularly on server type workloads, generally quite static. You're running a web server, for example, or an application. You're not going to have lots of changes to the applications that are running on there. We also have machine learning. I mentioned about machine learning. We've been doing this for 10 years or so. Now, we use this machine learning to help secure, and our machine learning is actually protected against some of the really big ransomwares, for example, in recent times, the WannaCrys, the GoldenEyes, some fireless type attacks, hacking tools. We're very good at protecting against these, and we'll go into more detail as we go through on this. Patch management, this is probably, in my opinion, the single biggest thing you can do to protect yourselves against most attacks is get rid of known vulnerabilities. If I was going to write some malware, I'd just look to leverage some vulnerability that's been published for a while, and it's quite easy to find on YouTube even how to do this. So we have some integrated patch management for Microsoft third-party applications. Currently we do this for Windows. We're going to do this for Mac and Linux in the next couple of months, actually. It's on the roadmap. We're nearly done.
Would that all be included in the same license?
For patch management, yeah. So we're going to do Mac, Linux and Windows, yeah. Currently we just do Windows, but we're doing third-party apps on Windows, so your Google, Java, Adobe, Mozilla. I think there's 95 odd vendors on there.
But patch management is a separate...
So yeah, patch management is a separate licensable thing. So this is an add-on. I've actually got a slide that breaks these down, and we can talk about that, but majority of everything that's included, patch management, and we actually manage full disk encryption as well at the OS level. So we do BitLocker and FileVault for Mac. So if you currently manage these, with some another tool, or you need to implement this. And going back to GDPR, I'm only going to say that once in this presentation. This is a big thing. Encrypting your laptops, for example. And lots of people do this already, but it's difficult to manage, difficult to report on. We have a nice way of leveraging the native encryption and just being able to report on compliance and turn the policy on, turn it off, recover passwords centrally. So it's very simple. Okay, we also have some anti-exploit and sandboxing. We're going to go into these different layers and how we protect against an attack. You know, I can explain the layers here and how they go through, but in essence, anti-exploit is looking for common attack techniques or exploitation techniques in any application. I would say this is not our blacklist. We're not looking for a known exploit for Adobe Reader version 9, for example. We're looking for the technique an attacker's going to use to exploit any application, so common applications, Office applications, Adobe, Java, etc. Sandbox, this is a cloud-based sandbox. We're very good at pre-execution protection, and we'll talk about the difference between pre-execution and non-execution as we go on. What the sandbox does, it allows us to take a view of a file. We're not 100% sure. There's some suspicious elements by looking at some algorithms, looking at some behaviors. Pre-execution, we can send the file to the sandbox, and this is where we, I would say, detonate the whole file. We allow it to run. We look at 40,000 features of the file. It takes about 5 minutes or so, and we give a very detailed report on what exactly would happen with this file. So it's looking to stop more advanced attacks. It's using some techniques to force the malware to present its intentions. Lots of malwares, you know, would try and avoid being executed in a virtual machine, for example. An easy way to check, you know, if I'm in a sandbox is to say, well, is this a VM? There's a chance this could be a sandbox, and look for different factors, you know, to hide its true intention so it gets allowed. So we've got some real good technology there that allows us to do this and see the intentions, report on this, block easily, and give visibility. Okay, does this all make sense? Mm-hmm. Any? Good. Okay, now this, let's skip this one. So we have, I would say we'd call this a layered approach. We've got the preventative controls, which are on the left there. So this is the reduce the attack surface, the hardening and control. And typically you would see these in endpoint protection. I'd call this EPP. So things like your patch management, your application whitelisting, and your content control, web filtering at the endpoint, looking at URLs, looking at traffic scanning, for example, managing full disk encryption, stopping somebody plugging those USBs I give out to everybody into their device and just reading whatever's on there, maybe getting infected. Now these are, you may have multiple solutions to manage these. You may manage these with various products. These are all about let's prevent. You know, let's not allow something to happen. In the middle here we have the different detections, and we split this out into 2 sections: pre-execution and on-execution. Already mentioned machine learning. We do some signatures, and a very you know, common, or I suppose a cool technique these days is signatureless protection. You know, we don't rely on signatures. Now, Bitdefender, we don't rely on signatures either, and we haven't for a long time. Lots of vendors also don't just rely on signatures. But signatures are still important, because if you know something's bad, we analyse 400,000 new malwares every day. So if you know something's bad, it's easy to just stop it. Reduces the overhead of securing the device. So we do some cloud lookups from our cloud intelligence from this 500 million endpoints. We have some machine learning. We do some of this in the cloud, so we offload some of that to cloud. We look up the file pre-execution, run it through some algorithms, see if anything's bad, decide whether we're going to stop it or not at a high level. Also, importantly, we have some local machine learning on the machine. Now this is really important, because there's lots of newer next-gen security anti-malware products that heavily rely on cloud. Now in the case of you know, some types of attack, if you can't, and some of these products, if you don't have cloud access to look this file up or run it through the machine learning in the cloud, you're not protected as much. So we run some of these algorithms locally, which is quite important. And this actually protected against WannaCry, for example. If you didn't have an internet connection, you didn't have an update for 6 months, this was an algorithm we had 4 years ago that just stopped that. No Bitdefender customers got impacted, which is pretty good. HyperDetect, Chris, you have our product already. Have you heard of HyperDetect and Sandbox Analyzer? No, okay. So this will be new for you as well, which is good. So HyperDetect is a term for our we call this tunable machine learning. What that allows us to do is segregate different types of attack, and we can adjust the aggressiveness of the machine learning to be more aggressive for certain types of attack. So I think the sections are exploits, ransomwares, potentially unwanted applications, suspicious files, network traffic. And the reason that we do that is depending on the type of organisation, the profile of the organisation, the size, they're getting hit with different types of attack. Now, generally, the product that you're using today, we're going to stop all of these, but what HyperDetect does is we can stop them earlier because we can be more aggressive. And of course, the more aggressive you are with everything, the more overhead this introduces because of potential false positives. So the product you have today, we've taken the decision, and I'm sure you see there's very low false positives with that product. But if you start turning things up, being more aggressive, there's a potential that there could be more false positives. But it also nicely allows you to report at different levels of aggressiveness. So you can say, well, we're just going to take the normal stance on protecting, but we want to report at a more aggressive level. So you can get indication earlier, and you can adjust your protection accordingly. This will make sense in the console. Bitdefender is very simple to configure. The GUI is very straightforward as well. The sandbox, this is new as well. So this is included in what we call our platform, which is called Elite. So there's GravityZone, there's various flavours of this, and I won't bore you with a chart with all of these, but the Elite platform includes HyperDetect and Sandbox Analyzer. Now the reason that we introduce these, there's a couple of reasons. One, pre-execution, being more aggressive from a security perspective, but also we're moving towards having better visibility. So have any of you used any EDR type solutions? Things like Carbon Black, CrowdStrike. And these are about being able to protect, but also to give better visibility. So you can see, this machine, well, we know it had a malware, but where did it come from? What happened? How many other machines were impacted? So you can close the loop and go back around and prevent again. So it's like, I'll cover this off in more detail, but this was the start of this for us, because these type of tools, they're giving better visibility, better reporting, different attack types, etc. The Sandbox Analyzer is where we send up files to the cloud, we analyse them, and we already talked about this. Now, this is before something happens, this is when something happens. So just because we didn't detect something before it executed, it doesn't mean we're just going to stop there and say it's good.
How does the Sandbox Analyzer work then? Let's say I click on an Excel spreadsheet that's got a couple of hundred mega data in it or something like that. Yeah. You send the whole file up to your cloud?
We would send the whole file, yeah, we would actually send the whole file. Okay. So automatically we send in executable file types, automatically. Yeah. So these layers would, if it gets through the previous layers, we make a decision on whether we're going to send something to the sandbox. So you wouldn't see lots of things going up to this sandbox.
So it's done based on...
Yeah, it's based on lots of different algorithms. Okay. There's a lot that goes into that decision. And then it gets, you can choose to monitor or block. So the monitoring mode means we just send it up, analyse it, send you the result back. Or you can block, which gives the end user, so if it's an end user device, they'll see a pop-up that says this access to this has been blocked. Until the analysis is returned, so you get a nice visibility of it's being analysed, and then you get the result back, and it's either allowed for everybody, or if it's deemed malicious, it just gets blocked for everybody. So I'll show you this in the console when we do the demo. Okay, any other questions on the sandbox? Or? No? Cool.
If you get something in the sandbox and it is malicious activity, how soon are your systems updated so that every other person using Bitdefender is aware of that potential exploit?
That's a very good question. No, that's a great question. So in your organisation, immediately, because when you'll see Bitdefender is very quick to send changes to policy, feedback is very quick into the console, so a matter of seconds you'll be protected. That's also then fed into our global intelligence. So what will happen, we'll see something bad here, we'll see a file, we'll have the hash of that file, that will get fed back and it will loop back down to here. So we don't even need to analyse it. This is why I said these cloud lookups and signatures can be important, because it means we're kind of closing the loop. We don't need to do this analysis again. We don't even need to run these machine learning algorithms, because we already know about it. So that's the advantage of having all that intelligence, from the 500 million endpoints in the cloud. Actually have 130,000 requests per second to our security services in the cloud, which is pretty much double Facebook posts, Google searches per second. So it's a massive cloud infrastructure. Okay, I think it takes something like 3 seconds for something to be spotted somewhere to be shared with everybody. So within 3 seconds we could see that information and make it available to everybody else. Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool. Okay, the on execution then, so this is before something executes, we make the decision, we allow it to execute, we have to continually monitor then. So we have anti-exploit, we briefly covered this before, but we also have something called process inspector. Now what this does is every process that starts on your machine, we continually monitor this, and again we're running algorithms in the background and we're looking for behaviours. So and it could be this process creates this registry key in combination with spawning this other process, and we say, okay, this is not quite right here, let's stop that process. So that's a kind of high level. There's actually a lot that goes into this. About 6 months ago, we had a whole 10-hour day training just on our anti-exploit. The technology is very involved. If you want some more technical information about these or deep dive, we're definitely happy to go into how these work, but we've got information we can share. Now, all very well protecting, you want to be able to take some actions and automate some actions. Nobody has time to sit there these days and say, I've seen this, what am I going to do about it? Let's try and fix it. So we want to be able to do things like quarantine, terminate a process if needed. We can actually roll back some changes. For example, a malware might have created a registry. We can uncreate the registry. We can remove the registry. It might have downloaded additional files. We can get rid of those. So, and then we can give visibility. Now, we have lots of dashboards, reports. I'll show you these in the demo. We have syslog integration, so you can pump this into some kind of reporting tool, AlienVol, logarithm, whichever tool you might use. We also have an integration. We've just started on the road of doing some integrations with SIEM solutions. The first one we did was Splunk, actually. So Splunk's available today. You can do an integration directly with this. But we have some more planned over the next few months. And this is our customers are asking for this, so we're really working hard to get the ones that are being asked for. So this is in the dashboard. You can, of course, get email reports. You can run them on demand. You can schedule them, so you get all the visibility, compliance type reports that you need. We can also give indicators of compromise, suspicious activities, and these two are from the hyperdetect. Because we're looking at the different types of attack, we can differentiate, a suspicious activity rather than we've seen something that's detected as bad. And we can give context of the threat. This is mainly provided by the sandbox analyzer because it gives you information about what the attack was doing or would have potentially done if it was allowed to run. So you get this sandbox report that lists out an A4 page of what this malware did in the sandbox, and you can use that information to say, okay, this malware's it's downloading this file, it's creating this registry, it's doing this, that, or the other, and it's connecting to this domain. So you can go back and say, this IP address, we need to be blocking this, for example, from our endpoints. Alerts and notifications. Okay, now that was a lot of information to go through very quickly. Any questions or?
So you're doing a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
How do you do all that, but without slowing down the user's machine, the execution, and because that's the main problem with antivirus. It has been traditionally is you want the best protection, but you want it to be completely invisible.
You want best performance as well. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's something that I will cover in the next few slides. So this typically, Barry's 100% right, and I'm sure you've all seen anti-malware products or security products. You turn things on and it really slows down the machine. Particularly in the virtual environment and server workloads. If I had £1 for every customer that told me, I'd say, what security are you using on your servers? And then, well, we used X, but it was really impacting the performance. Our SQL database wasn't running very well, so we just turned it off. And I'm like, oh, you turned it off? Yeah, we just had to take the risk because we need this application for business. So we have a way of securing the device dependent on the workload, and this automatically is decided by Bitdefender's client, so it will work out, which type of machine it is, what it's trying to do, what resource it has, is it physical, is it virtual, and it will secure it with the best approach. And we'll go through this.
Liam, just before you move on, so we talked around the sandbox analyzer and hyperdetect being features of Elite.
Yeah.
As me and you were talking earlier, there's a little bit of kind of sandboxing that goes on locally. It's not sandboxing. It's as we discussed, it's more like emulation. Is that the machine learning? Does that happen at the machine learning?
Yeah, this is a pre-execution. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've worked for other vendors, and sometimes they before this security vendors, and sometimes they term, you know, some of these pre-execution checks you're doing as sandboxing, but technically it's not sandboxing, because you can't at pre-execution fully run the code and see what happens. What you do, it's emulation of execution. So I think that's just sandboxing here before this actual sandbox analyzer, maybe you know, a confusion with emulation. So I'd say we emulate the execute. We look at the code and see what we think it's going to do, rather than we're actually going to run it and see exactly what it does.
And that sandbox analyzer, that doesn't happen in real time, I assume, does it?
It goes up. It sends the file up to the cloud. It takes about up to 5 minutes to send it.
So the application will be running.
Yeah.
And are you then able to terminate the application even though it's running?
Yeah, we would block access to it
Okay.
until the analysis comes back, or you can just have a monitoring mode.
And do most people use monitoring?
Yeah, they'd use monitoring mode for a period, and then just to see that some, you know, custom applications don't get detected. But you'll see there's lots of independent tests about Bitdefender that show that we're really low impact on machines, but also we have very low false positives, and this is really key, because more false positives, more management overhead, and you start getting alert fatigue. You see loads of alerts, you start ignoring them, and you're back to let's turn the security off. Which any other questions on this one? No? Okay. So there's two deployment options, and I'm going to show you today that on-premises. There's on-premise or Bitdefender's public cloud. This is an AWS. Obviously, very straightforward. You get a URL, you log in, you see the management console, you download a client, you install it. So this is minutes. The GravityZone virtual appliance. Now, the reason to use this is it has some integrations that you can use. One of them is VMware. We can integrate with ZenCenter. We're going to have a Nutanix integration. So this gives you some better visibility into the data center type environment. The good news is this is a Linux virtual appliance. So again, this is a 15-minute job to get this up and running. Actually deployed this in a I don't know, 8,000 seat organisation. They had something like 8 virtual appliances, load balancing, replica set for the database, and it took 2 hours. So it's very simple to do. It's just a template you just turn on, give an IP address, next, install a few roles, job done. So we're not messing about when we say 15 minutes. I actually have a video of doing this, and I got stopped a few times, and I had to so the time on the PC is probably longer than 15 minutes, but I could show you it's less than 15 minutes. So we take care of all the back end, the infrastructure. We'll talk about the infrastructure shortly, and there's no licenses needed for this management capability because it's Ubuntu. We use MongoDB. There's no reliance on any web server, IIS or .NET or SQL Server or anything. These sometimes the hidden costs, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a
Windows server to run it on.
a Windows server, yeah, to begin with, and then a SQL license, and then managing that and versions, etc., can be a challenge.
Is there feature parity between the cloud and on-premise versions?
Very close feature parity. The difference is integrations. You don't get VMware integration with the cloud. You do not. We only manage mobile iOS and Android devices with on-premise currently, and whitelisting, application control. We currently only do this on-premise. There are some challenges doing this in the cloud because a lot of hashes go into our cloud. We're going to release this soon as well. We're working on it. We're nearly there.
So we do the patch management with the cloud?
Yeah, we do patch management with the cloud. We do the full disk encryption management with the cloud. Everything apart from the integrations with VMware and the mobile device management.
Sorry, is iOS management different license as well?
It depends on the license type that you have, because we do some bundle licenses. We basically license per device. So if you have 10 servers, 10 servers, 10 endpoints, 10 licenses, 10 mobile devices, 10 mobile licenses. If you have, we can split with on-premise, we can split the license out. So you could have like virtual servers, physical workstations, physical servers, mobile devices. Do you have that license, or do you have a bundle?
Yeah, I believe we do. Yeah, so we've presently got so many virtual servers and so many.
So you'd buy GravityZone for mobile devices, and it doesn't matter iOS or Android. But you can, in effect, buy a bundle license, which is like you get 500 licenses, and a certain percentage of them could be servers, and we don't care then whether they're mobiles or workstations or what.
From the cloud-based version, is it multi-tenanted? So if computer would want to use it and manage antivirus for some of our smaller customers, would we have to buy a cloud instance for each customer, or can it be multi-tenanted?
No, it's multi-tenanted. So you'd have Computer World, you could have multiple customers. Underneath you, they could have multiple customers underneath them. Very easy to manage, role-based access. Actually very easy to deploy as well, because you just click send an email, it sends an email to all the people, and they can just start installing and you can start managing. So we've got lots of partners that really heavily focus on MSP, and they use the Bitdefender Platform. Throughout the world, actually, we've got some really big organisations using this. But good for if you have a parent company and you have subsidiaries that you want to manage separately. You can just have a top level view. They can manage, say a group of schools, for example. The HQ wants to manage multiple schools and have a high level view, but they only want the schools to log in and manage their own machines. We can set this up. Okay, that's something actually, Barry. We should have a look at if that's something that you think you'll find useful. We can definitely, definitely. Okay, so this single agent, already mentioned that it's an intelligent agent and it's going to be able to work out the workload that it's protecting. We can install this in a number of ways. You can push it out from the Bitdefender console. For example, we can integrate with VMware, see all your VMs. You can just choose to install on the VM because it's a live integration. You can bake it into the image. You can put it in the VDI image. We'll talk about VDIs as we move on. But we have some real strengths in virtual environment, particularly VDIs. We also want to install the other anti-malware. So if you have another anti-malware, and we're being recorded, so I won't talk about any other vendors, but the usual ones, we can uninstall them. There's about 30 us, so we uninstall. And then you can choose how you want to protect the machine, and this is great because on servers you might want to do app control but not on your workstations. You might want to do full disk encryption just on your laptops, device control not on your virtual servers. So it's a modular solution. We can load and unload these modules, no reboot needed, nothing complex, tick a box, job done. And we already talked about you can deploy this with any tool, but you can also deploy it with the Bitdefender console. You can even deploy it from the cloud actually. So if you use cloud, you just make a machine in your location become what we call a relay. That machine can then distribute the client to all the other machines. So really simple. Any questions on deployment? I'll show you this as well. So some of the things that are covered in the other presentation as well, ease of management and automating things. Bitdefender are very strong at this with this single pane of glass that allow you to have visibility of everything in this single console. So whether it's in AWS, whether it's in Azure, Google Clouds, on VMware you might have some Hyper-V, you might have some Zen server, and typically we see lots of mixed environments, hybrid type environments, very difficult to, same as with the data, it's going everywhere. Your machines, your workloads are everywhere. You need to be able to have a single pane of glass that shows you all of these and how, make it easy to manage. And then we can have some automation during deployment. We can automate policy. If you had VDIs, for example, you have non-persistent VDIs, you're firing up thousands of these a day. You just need to know that they're protected. You don't need to worry about, has this got the latest policy? Has it got all the definitions? We can just automate this. Okay. Also, importantly, when in the VDI example, when you're constantly destroying machines and creating machines, the solution needs to be virtual aware, needs to know about this, and because we can do these integrations, we can tell, when a machine's created, when it's destroyed, we can release a license. We can also do some CPU licensing, so organisations, large organisations, it can be much more cost-effective licensing per CPU, and also they don't need to worry about, today we've got 1,000 VDIs, tomorrow we've got 2,000, they just need to worry about how many CPUs they've got. So it makes it easier.
With regard to automation, is it just a REST-based API, or have you got PowerShell integration?
We don't have any PowerShell integration. Automation really around the deployment would be for NSX. This is kind of baked into NSX, so and baking this into VDIs, for example, or baking it into the image. So on the deployment.
You can also stage it through group policy as well.
Yeah, you could use group policy or SCCM or scripts.
You just mentioned Hyper-V before, so it was just something to have a quick jab at Ollie. Bitdefender doesn't actually support the integration with Hyper-V.
The inventory.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know.
Is that because Hyper-V is not a real hypervisor?
No, no comment. No, we do. This is loosely on our roadmap, but we see obviously the market really, the biggest market is VMware. I think before that we were going to be integrating with Azure. So there's no answer on that one, I'm afraid. I'll come back to you.
I suppose the problem with Hyper-V is if everyone was using Virtual Machine Manager, it'd be very easy to go to one place to go and query an inventory.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't use Virtual Machine Managers, they're using standalone hosts, so that at that point you then have to go...
You have to integrate with all of them.
All of the hosts, you have to find all the hosts, you have to find all the VMs, and at that point you might as well just go and find the VMs.
Yeah, it's not like you can just integrate with vCenter and there you go, you've got all your clusters or whatever you have. Okay, so just touch on the pain points quickly. How long have I got left? I might need to speed up a little. Have I got until 1, is it?
Yeah, just past 1 o'clock.
Just past 1 o'clock. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get a bit faster. So the big challenge, we already talked about this, is things like updating the anti-malware signatures. You know, when new machines come on, they've got to update themselves, they've got to get signatures, etc. In a virtual environment, this is a big challenge. This is where Bitdefender really wins, because usually the more you secure the machine, the more impact on performance this has. So we have this lightweight solution which prevents some of these things which we call like an AV storm. You know, all the machines are trying to scan at the same time, they're scanning the same files over hundreds of machines. You know, it causes massive performance degradation. We all know this, I won't preach about this, but managing lots of different consoles, different agents, again, you know, costs money ultimately and time. Okay, someone's just done some fancy animations on this one. Okay, I did delete all the animations, but I must have missed this slide. So this is what this looks like. A simple architecture diagram. We've got some more detailed ones we can share if you want these with the ports. But basically, you have the control center. You can manage any type of environment, any hypervisor. So we're hypervisor agnostic. We work on any hypervisor. We can manage multiple hypervisors from the same platform. So this could be you know, your VMs on Nutanix, it could be your VMs on VMware, you know, it could be in the cloud, it could be wherever. So public cloud infrastructure also. And the way we do this in a lightweight manner is instead of installing a full client on each VM, we install something lightweight. We'll still call it a client or an agent, but it's very lightweight. 10 meg of RAM, 100 meg of disk space it takes up instead of the, you know, the standard 600 or so meg a client usually is for anti-malware. And we have what's called this security virtual appliance, and this sits on top of one of your hosts. So it could be whichever hypervisor, VMware, for example. And then we will protect all the VMs, not just on that host, on any host. So we don't need a one per host. So we install the Bitdefender lightweight client, and then we have this caching mechanism, which is a multi-level cache. There's lots of intelligence that goes into this, but at a high level, we scan a file once on one VM. The scanning's not actually taking place down here on the VM, it's taking place here. So all the engines, signatures, behavioral analysis goes on this appliance instead of on each VM. So you can imagine the performance that's given back to the VM doing this. So rather than doing your scans locally, you're doing them in a centralized manner on the VM. And we're caching the file, so we scan a file once, we don't have to scan it across all the other hundreds of VMs. So,
did you say that's one in total, we've got one per host?
Yeah.
That SVA. Is that not a bottleneck?
No.
Potentially.
No, that's a good question. So you're taking the performance away from, you're giving back CPU, RAM, etc. Is it going to give you loads of network traffic? Well, we're actually, at this point, when we send these files across to the security appliance, we've got some intelligence in there. So we send them in 1K chunks. We only send the part of the file that's executable. Generally, if you took an executable file, or potentially the part of it that's executable, something like 20% of it. So it's 20% of the files, and then we send them in 1K chunks. But you will see from some independent tests that show, and easy to try this solution, the performance will massively increase using this approach.
When we do the deployments, we do tend to deploy one on each host, and then use the policy to keep the communication local on the host.
On the same host, yeah.
For each of the VMs that's being protected, to use its local SBA where possible. As Ben said, it's a single point of failure. Now, bottleneck performance-wise, there is a limit to the performance that it will process depending on the spec that you choose of it. But,
of course, yeah.
that tends to be the best practice that we adopt. Technically, no, you don't have to deploy one on each host because the communication is going over the network. I don't know. It's possibly something we could discuss.
If you're running, say, Azure, and you put, I assume you put SVA in Azure to do what you need to do in Azure, and you've got an on-premises data center. But those SVAs communicate. So if I ran a file on an on-premise instance, will it update the one in Azure not to do it as well? So that it is localized to a
the central scanning mechanism is localized. There are some plans to change that so that it's going to share between them, but it really depends on what the environment looks like, and is it multiple hypervisors, is there some cloud involved, so we could help. But yeah, I mean, ideally if you had one on each host, it's gonna help with performance. But what I'm trying to just point out is we're not relying on one per host. There are lots of solutions that rely on one, and if this goes down, it causes havoc because the machines aren't protected. But we have multiple levels of failover. We can just go to
the one. It could
you could just find 2 or 3.
Yeah,
so 6, 7.
2 at a minimum.
Yeah.
2 at a minimum. Yeah. One of them generally, I think a default configuration will look after about 200 VMs or something like that. So
it goes back to vShield Endpoint, which you used to have to deploy something on each and every host, and then you guys moved forward the technology.
That's right. Yeah, it was the vShield integration went by the host module.
And you mentioned the control center earlier. If, again, the same scenario, if I've got on-premise and in Azure, that one control center will allow me that single pane of glass across both.
Exactly, yeah.
Do I need VPNs? Does it need to be all on one network, or can it communicate across the public internet?
There's across the public internet, yeah. Okay, there's some reports in the interest of time. I'm going to skip over this. This is quite marketing-y as well, but this is Login VSI, which show some results of some testing that was done that shows different products, and Bitdefender are not the only product that can do some of this centralized type scanning, and you can read all about this. I'll share this with you afterwards. But ultimately, it's showing that Bitdefender, has a lower impact on the environment securing it than our competitors, and indeed very close to not having any security on the machine. So it's very lightweight. Okay, ultimately scalable. There's four different roles in the actual appliance. So if you install this on premise, we have the communication with all the endpoints, all the machines. We have the updates to deliver the updates to all the machines. We have the database at the back end. This is MongoDB. And then we have the web front end. So it's a web console that you can log into. And this is infinitely scalable. This is the same exact we're giving you in the box, the architecture that we're using in the cloud, which has got 60 odd million endpoints we're protecting. So it's ultimately scalable. You just deploy another VM, you make it become a database server or a communication server or a web server. One goes down, it can fail over automatically. We also have some load balancing. You can use your own load balancer, or we can use one of our VMs and just make this a load balancer, and it balances all the load between them. MongoDB, this has its own kind of what's called a replica set, so we can just have 3, 5, 7, 9 or something. Databases, one goes down. So in big organisations, highly scalable and efficient to deploy, resilient. Okay, so we talked about this already, but you can imagine you have different, security servers. These can be on different hosts. You could have one on AWS, for example. If one goes down, they're just going to automatically use the other one. Actually, what's nice about this as well, if you're using this central scan approach, and all of these are not contactable, these security appliances, it can just fall back, load the engines it needs locally, and do it locally, or use the cloud.
So, with regard to, going back to the appliance, the patch management, where do you download the patches to? Are they downloaded to your appliance, or do they need to go onto a Windows deployment, a server, hold the patch data?
Currently, they go. You can set this in the policy. You can use what's called a relay. So you'd have a relay in each location. So you distribute the patches from that relay, and we download them from Adobe or wherever they are after we've, whichever vendor it is, and then the relay distributes them out.
So the relay is
a relay is a Windows machine for now, but it'll be able to do this on Linux as well when we're supporting Linux for this. So yeah, use the relay. It's not downloading it to the management appliance, the Ubuntu appliance. But also there's a check in the policy. You can say if they can't use the caching server, we call this a patch caching server or something, you check a box, they can download directly from the vendor's website. So you can say, we've seen these vulnerabilities, just download the fixes from there. Even for a laptop desktop, you can say, actually security, let's just automatically install the security ones. So you can automate some of that as well.
The cloud-based platform, is it the same?
Same, yeah,
exactly
the same.
If you've got a small business, 20 employees maybe, you don't really have a server or anything like that, they could all just get them direct from the vendor website, so you're just directing it.
Or you could even make, the reception machine become a relay, give it 100 gig of space. For the patches, that's one of the requirements, and it's always switched on, so we know that it's going to be able to cache all these packages, and away you go. I'm sure they'll have some kind of file server or whatever somewhere, but yeah, in essence, you don't need to do that. If you had no servers, you could still use this. Okay, now NSX. Now, anybody use NSX in here? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we have some integration with NSX. So GravityZone can integrate with NSX, and what this allows us to do is to use the NSX guest introspection driver to do some agentless anti-malware scanning. Now, this is great for automation. You can manage security profiles and policies in NSX outside. So you've got your guy that's looking after NSX, completely separate to your security guy who's looking after GravityZone. And he can do what he needs to do. The policy's set in GravityZone. You can tag machines that have got viruses. You can segregate them into a quarantine group, for example, until it gets resolved in the GravityZone console. We scan the machine, we remove the malware, they move them back into the other security group. I'm going to go through this briefly. We'll probably not have time to go through the video, but I've got lots of information I can share and show on this one. Now, there are some big advantages of using this in terms of deployment and integration. So in a big organisation, this makes sense. Can anybody think what you couldn't do with this type of solution? No? What this allows you to do is just to use the guest introspection driver to pass files to here to be scanned. So it's only file-based scanning. So you can't do any of the process monitoring, you can't do any of the things. Because we're not installing something, we can't do the patch management, the preventative stuff. We can't do some of the machine learning. We can do some of the machine learning here. And we actually have, in the May release for NSX, we're going to make the hyperdetect work on NSX as well, which allows you to split out the different types of attack.
So when you're using the NSX integration, you don't deploy the Bitdefender agents onto the endpoints? No. It's purely relying on the endpoint. Yeah,
you have to still install something, which is this guest introspection driver. And you have to set up a profile to do this in NSX, and it's a simple task. Now, this does rely on one security server per host, so that's the difference. It's the same with the vShield. Previously,
it's pretty much vShield, but with a bit of NSX.
We do support vShield at Bitdefender actually, but I think around August time we're going to end support for this. But we can help people move from vShield to NSX, and we've got some customers, that are looking to migrate, and we're protecting till August time. I think is when we're going to support them till. Okay. But we'd take new customers as long as they had a plan to move to to NSX. If they didn't plan, we're not going to support vShield for too much longer. Okay, let's skip this because we're going to run out of time. So VMware Cloud, everybody heard of VMware Cloud on AWS? Okay, so we have, so I'll skip this. These are very large cloud instances that Amazon are giving you the bare metal with VMware on top of. And we can integrate with this because we integrate with VMware, and we'll show you this. I'll show you this integration with vCenter. This is just exactly the same as having a vCenter, but it's hosted by Amazon. So there's some use cases. We'll skip through these. In fact, let me skip through this way. It'll be a little bit quicker. Okay, so I'll show you this screenshot because I don't have this in my lab, which I'm going to show you shortly. But you can see actually, if I move away a little bit, if I try and duck down a little bit, you can see here that this is the VMware inventory. So this is your on-premise at the bottom here. So this is your vCenter that you're managing in your data center, and then you can also integrate in the cloud here. So this is the one that Amazon are actually managing for you. So it allows you to do the central scanning, single pane of glass, manage, integrate in real time with the machines you're deploying in the cloud on AWS.
You're integrating with NSX inside VMware on AWS then?
No.
Okay. So at the moment you're not able to isolate machines or anything like that via NSX?
No.
Is that something that you're looking for?
It's something that I think that they're working on. Now, yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. But yeah, publicly, no. So at the minute, the benefit of this is really the integration, allowing you to, have this single pane of glass and to be able to see your machines in real time when they're created. Imagine you've got some using Horizon View and you're creating lots of machines quickly. You're deleting them. You can have this real view, protect them. You can have a policy per host, per cluster, per resource pool, per data center, etc. You could even apply the policy at the very top level, VMware. Everything on VMware gets this standard policy. So every machine is just protected as soon as it's created. Okay. Okay, so I was going to give you, if I've got 15 minutes, I'm going to have to skip through some of this. I thought I would have loads of time.
You've got a bit longer than 15
Have I?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no problem.
Okay, let me go through it. Let's show you a video quickly, and then can you see with me sitting here? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is just, let me quickly show you about deployment. So you basically get the template, and this could be whichever hypervisor you want, but VMware in this instance. So you just download this. I did try and edit this yesterday, so it cut out some of the waiting time. If you actually, while we're waiting for that, if you wanted to deploy this in the cloud, you just fire up an Ubuntu instance and just install the MongoDB database. There's literally 3 or 4 commands, so it's really simple. So you could actually host the management in your own cloud environment. So just deploy the template here. So you just select the GravityZone. All versions of GravityZone is the same template. So the features, functions just depend basically on the license that you insert into this, and you'll see when we do the license in a minute. So choose this in my the small environment, and choose a host, or you choose a cluster or whatever you wanted to deploy this on. And it's all pre-configured, so it's going to use something like 128 gig from the data store. It's 4 virtual CPUs. It's 8 gig of RAM, I think now actually, is the default. And one of these appliances, one management appliance, will look after about 3,000 machines. Obviously, when you've got thousands of machines, you'd probably want to consider redundancy, resiliency. So you just duplicate this, deploy it again. It would call it GravityZone 2, and you just install the web console or the communication server, and you build redundancy. You could even actually just deploy the communication server in the DMZ which is quite a common occurrence with our customers. They want to manage machines over the internet. Most anti-malware security solutions get their updates from the cloud or whatever, but if you're installing the management on premise, you want to make sure that it's publicly facing, so you can get reports, change policies, as well as knowing the machines are protected. So this is really easy to do. It's literally a 5-minute job to install one of those. So turn it on. It's going to boot up, ask you for a password. And then literally you're just going to give it a name, an IP address. That's as simple as it is. And then you go away and start choosing the roles that you want to install. There is actually an automatic installation option. So you just click automatic installation and away it goes. Let me try and skip through some of this. So you can see there I've created a password. This is the appliance. I put my password in, give it a host name here. Some network settings. There you go. This is much better in fast forward, isn't it? And then you're going to add the roles. The first role is a database. You need a database. Now, actually, if you have any issues with the product, the database is key to everything because it's just storing all your settings, all your information, all your policies. So you back up the database. Any problem, just deploy one of these, import the database. So, even without building in redundancy, it's very simple to get back to where you were, in potentially 30 minutes. So you just add the roles here. You just see you're just spacing over these. It's dead simple. Yes, there we go. And now we've got all those roles installed on the same box. We can log into the web console here. The first time you log in, you need to add some license key, which you get from Bitdefender. You can get your trial or you can purchase one. There you go. Put your name and some details. This is to log into the web GUI, and then once you're done, you can actually log into the web GUI. So let me show you what it actually looks like instead of this video. So this is my GravityZone. Actually, it looks all right in there. So there's some integrations. You can see there's different events that are reflected in here. Protection statuses, compliance reports, activities. You can drill down into all these. You can see what's been happening. You can fix them. But first of all, let's have a look at. We mentioned that we're very lightweight in the virtual environment. It's easy to deploy, easy to configure policy. So first of all, the first thing you do, you go to configuration. This is where you configure things like your mail server, any proxy server that you need for your appliance to get out to the internet, your endpoints to get to the appliance, etc. Configure a backup of the database, very important. You should do this. Active Directory, pull in information from Active Directory. You can assign policies to users, user groups. We can see all the machines in AD, so you could deploy out to your machines. So this is my servers group. We can see all these machines. They're unprotected. Let's deploy the client to them. But in the virtual environment, you're going to want to add your vCenter server. So we have two options in here currently: vCenter and Zen server. You can add multiple vCenters in here, and all you're doing is basically giving the IP address, some credentials. If you were using NSX, you would configure this here for NSX, and then you integrate with the NSX manager in there. And what this allows you to do, it synchronizes, and it's live now. So if I go to this network view, you can see here that I've got two options. I've got computers and virtual machines, which shows me my Active Directory infrastructure and also custom groups of machines that aren't part of the domain. But with virtual machines, I can see here, this is a reflection of my vSphere. So my vCenter server, I've got this host. These machines are on. So this one here, for example, Venus. I can't see that very well, even my glasses on. You can see this guy here is powered on, and it's got a B here. It's protected by Bitdefender. These ones are paused, so I can see they're protected. And I can, of course, just filter out from here. I can go through and expand, the different views here. And this is reflecting in real time what's happening, in VMware. So if I create, for example, a new resource pool, So I created a new resource pool there. You can see, look, immediately it's reflected. So we know immediately about machines that are created, destroyed, had their infrastructure changes, what it looks like, if machines, you know, vMotion to some other host or whatever data center, some other cluster. We know about this. There's a couple of views here as well. This is the host view. You can actually have a look at the machines and see your folders in here. So I think hopefully I've got in this one some folders. So yeah, you can see your containers in there. So we've got clients and management. So you can apply policies as per your VMware structure. What's nice about this is to do the central scanning, you need to use a security server. So we talked about the SVA, the security virtual appliance. If I just quickly change this view back to the hosts and clusters view, I can select here, and if I had a cluster in my environment, I could select the cluster, and I could say here, you see this little blue actually, this blue means that there's some Bitdefender infrastructure installed on that host. So I know that's the management appliance. But I can select here on this host, and I can say, actually, I want to install a security server. I can choose some options here, deployment container, consolidation options, you know, this 2 meg RAM, 2 virtual CPUs. And you can change the size of this based upon, you know, the size of the environment, set a password for the appliance, network settings, save, and by magic this is just going to deploy, because the integration is going to deploy the virtual appliance. It's going to appear in here. You'll see the job kicking off in a minute. And you'll see this in a minute or so. It'll actually just literally start deploying. You can see, look there, deploy template, the machine's there now. So it's going to deploy itself, it's going to power on, and then we're just configuring the policy. This is my VMware policy. They're going to use this security appliance. So very simple to deploy these. Now you can install one of these as we mentioned in AWS, in Google Cloud, wherever it may be. You know, obviously you don't want traffic from AWS going back into your data center, so you would just install one there and configure a policy, say these machines in AWS are going to use this security server. If they can't use that, they can just get the definitions locally or do the scanning locally. Now this is all configured in the policy, so I'll just quickly show you a policy while we wait for that to deploy. So you can see we have here anti-malware, and I'll go through all these settings in a minute because we'll talk about the protection. But you've got security servers. So at the minute I already have one. Actually I have the scanning server installed on the main appliance, which you can do, but you wouldn't do this in production. In here the drop down will show this machine when it's finished being deployed, which is on 50-odd%. So when that's finished, I'd be able to add this in here, and I'd be able to say, actually use this one, then use this one. And then you also have the option to say, use the same host if you want to. Use the same host first. If it can't use the same host, it will fall back and do this somewhere else. Okay. So from a security, quickly just go through the anti-malware. You can see actually that in the GUI, it's kind of 1 or 2 clicks, so it's really easy to manage. You would click policies, for example, create or drill down into a policy, and then you can configure the different settings, security settings in here. So you've got lots of things about communication, updates, all out of the box, just configured how you'd need it. Very simple. We have the on-access scanning. This is when you read a file. This is some of the machine learning and things. The advanced threat control. This is the process monitoring, the anti-exploit. So this is the continual behavioural type monitoring. Ransomware vaccine. This is some additional layer of protection against ransomware. We actually put down some markers on the machine to fool ransomware into thinking the machine's already been infected. So this is kind of a last line of defence. The machine learning really is where we stop ransomwares. On demand, everyone seen this kind of thing before. So this is your scheduled type scan, daily, weekly scan. Choose what you want to do when you see something. Are we going to scan archives? Are we going to blah, blah, blah? Hyper detect, this is something that we talked about. This is being able to adjust the aggressiveness of the machine learning. And this makes it simple because you have the different types of attack here. And this is at pre-execution, remember, and you can say, look, I'm just going to leave this on a normal level of aggressiveness, so there'll be less of a chance of false positives, but I want to actually extend the reporting to aggressive, so I'm going to report at an aggressive level but only block at normal. Then after a period of time, you see you're getting hit with loads of ransomware or exploits after you've had a period of a month or so. You can say, actually, we should be more aggressive in protecting against ransomware, not just reporting on it. So you can adjust this. So this also, because we're segregating these out, and this is what we call our elite platform, it allows you to report on different types, which is nice. You can see how many are ransomwares, how many are exploits, rather than just going through and trying to work out from some names or the type in a report. And the sandbox analyzer, this is choosing to automatically submit the files up to the sandbox. You can manually do this as well. The automatic submission is executable files. But manually, you could submit anything. So you could submit a PDF, you could submit an XLS or whatever you wanted to do. So the idea of it is to automatically block until, if we have blocking mode, we're automatically going to block the user's access to the file until it's been examined and we get the analysis back and it's good, it's bad, etc. If we have it in monitoring mode, we're just going to obviously report on this and say, we've sent this to the sandbox, actually this is malicious or it's okay. So that's a real simple configuration. Firewall, everybody's seen a endpoint firewall. We replace a Windows firewall on non-server operating systems, easy to manage, configure, application, connection rules, content controls and web filtering, patch management. Let's talk about this. This is fairly new to Bitdefender. So we have this caching server. We don't need one of these, but we're going to use a machine to cache the packages in the environment when we deploy them. And you can see here you've got use vendors' websites as fallback. So if the machines can't connect to this or it's turned off or whatever happens, they just go to the vendor directly. Now we do this scan, automatic patch scan. You can configure this, so you can say daily, weekly, at a certain time. I've worked for about 5 or 6 years for a vendor that heavily focuses on patch management previous to Bitdefender, and I've seen lots of different patch solutions, so I know quite a lot about these. Usually these scans can take 15 to 20 minutes to scan and report on your machine what's vulnerable, and using even SECM can be a challenge to get these reports back to see what's vulnerable. So one of the strengths of Bitdefender takes less than 60 seconds to scan the machines and show you what's vulnerable. So you can do this automatic. It's very lightweight as well. You don't need to worry about an impact when you're scanning thousands of machines. It's very lightweight. So I'd recommend just do this every day at least. And then you can choose, for server workloads, you're not going to be wanting to automatically install patches because obviously lots of them need reboots. We can postpone the reboot, but you want to test these in a test kind of subset of your machines first, make sure it doesn't break anything, then deploy it out to production. But for your laptops, why wouldn't you just want to automate security, critical security updates? You should just be pushing them out straight away.
Does it integrate with WSUS?
It doesn't need WSUS at all. So it doesn't integrate. It's the same coverage as you get from WSUS. It's
Is there quite what's the reporting like behind it? So one half of it is patching, the other half is then reporting how up to date you are with patching. And
Yeah.
Okay, I will show you this actually. Let me jump to that then. So you've got a dashboard on here, and bear in mind this is a small test environment, so there's not that much information in here, but there should be enough to show you the idea. So these are all dashboards, and actually all these dashboards you can drill down. They're the full versions of reports. You can schedule these, but you can log in as a user admin A and just see patching. He looks after patching. This guy looks after virtual machines. We've got role-based access, and you can customize all the dashboards and stuff. But the kind of things you'd expect. So here you've got. This is all our machines, computers and virtual machines, network patch status. So you've got this dashboard here, security, this is urgent, non-security, and you can drill down into these. So this is the report, and you can see your machines in here. You can see, these machines are missing security updates here. I can drill down into these, non-security. So this is a machine that I built, didn't do any patches on. It's actually turned Windows Update off for something else. But so you can see all the patches there, and you can actually just install them from there. So you could do install. You could force the reboot, because obviously you install all these patches, you're going to need a reboot to finish. So you can actually have visibility of the machines in the console that they go orange, so you can see they're pending the patch reboots. You can easily filter out which machines need a reboot. They've had the patches deployed. You can even push the reboot job out from here if you wanted to. So you could perhaps deploy them on the week after Patch Tuesday, like the third Tuesday of the month, and then you could force the reboot by the following Tuesday or something. If you have 30 days to be compliant or whatever it is. Also, there's this patch inventory here. So you can see in my lab, I've only got some Adobe, Google, and this populates based upon the vendors that you have installed on the result of the scan. So you can see here I can sort out, based upon severity. So critical, important, low, the category, security, non-security. I can look for CVE IDs, KB numbers.
The previous screen, when you were configuring it, I think it said security or non-security.
Yeah.
Could you also do it on high priority? A lot of customers just want to make sure that all the high priority patches are being installed, whether they may be classed as security or not security or both. Yeah,
not from that view, not in the policy today. There are. This is we've had this for probably 3 months or so. We have had some great feedback from some customers. We've got lots of customers who are taking it straight away. Now there are patch solutions out there that are very granular, have great reports and lots of reports. This is something that we'll work towards. So we've already had some great feedback, and I know they're already implementing some of the feature requests and stuff. That's one good thing about Bitdefender as well. Another good point there, they take customer feedback really seriously. So the reporting, will grow, get stronger, and the options there.
How does that compare with what we do?
Sorry, what was that? The email. Sorry, there was an email I was responding to.
No, don't worry about
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so from a reporting side, other solutions have lots more reports. They have some more granularity in how you make the deployments and visibility during the deployment. But that's something that will come in time with Bitdefender. This is if somebody's not doing third-party patching, or this is a challenge for them. This is an easy, quick win if they're using Bitdefender. Yeah. We can't sell this along. It doesn't work without the Bitdefender engine. Okay.
Compared to the other stuff that we do, this does what it says on the tin, but the other stuff that we do, I don't know whether to mention the name here or not.
No, it's a purpose-built patching solution, so it has more to offer.
Yes, it's bells and whistles,
yeah. And certainly around the reporting of the progress that it's making with regards to patching and stuff like that, which as an administrator, sometimes you want that positive feedback to know that, right, I've kicked all of this stuff off. It's going to take days for this to complete. You don't want to know in 5 days' time, oh, it fell over after an hour, but it didn't tell me that.
The biggest challenge for people is actually patching.
Yeah,
and it's actually, you need to do something.
Yeah. So we use an enterprise-grade patching solution for our servers. So we use something very similar to this for our desktops. So competitors that we use for our desktop patching and antivirus. Yeah. So this looks very similar to your competitor. It starts with a K for the desktop patching. So that's interesting. It seems to have evolved. Now they integrate with us, but they don't do it very well. Which has its benefits, because Worcesters has some merits over and above this for the Microsoft patching, but that vendor product.
Microsoft patching doesn't. I mean, Worcesters is just going to pull down the Microsoft patch catalog. Microsoft's patch catalog is the most commonly available and easy to access.
No, absolutely. But it was just it's Worcester's benefits of scheduling tasks to implement in an automated fashion patches. So it's just trying to.
So you don't get much visibility. Well, there is reporting there, but you don't get much visibility on what's actually happened. So it's basically hit and then hope that some stuff happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of people who are saying, I'll say, well, GDPR, we need to get patching sorted from a security point of view. And there's a lot of, there seems to be 2 tiers of products. There's like one that will just allow you to put in a box to say, I've got a tick in a box to say, I've got a patching solution. Others are doing it properly with good reporting. I'm just trying to work out where this fits in.
This is coming into the latter. I think it's early days of being the latter.
And if people want it all in one console, that's the other thing, is that some people will have, or some customers rather, will have a drive of, oh, I don't want another admin console to worry about. And it depends how important that is to the individual. If they want to do all of their endpoint management in one place, well, you can do encryption with this, you can do your patching with this, you can do your endpoint security, you can lock it all down with this. It's giving you a single a single pane of glass for your endpoints. It depends how important that is. Yeah.
How big is the catalogue?
95 vendors. Every vendor that offers third-party patching will say we've got the biggest catalogue. We've got the biggest catalogue.
Do you publicise the list of?
Yeah, I can share it with you. Yeah, in fact, I'll show you can see in the policies because you can actually decide, which applications that you want to automatically patch. So you can drill down into.
You could automatically patch. So you say every patch Tuesday, you could auto patch all Microsoft updates, or go granular and say just critical updates.
Yes.
Yeah. Here, so here on the screen.
Critical updates is your analogy of all your laptop community. They're getting
Security updates. Yeah.
You don't have to go in and manually approve to the product.
No approval workflow like in WSUS. Yeah.
Okay.
The pit they've got at the moment is either is it a security patch or not.
Yeah.
They don't allow you to do it on the secondary category of highly critical. And all
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we've got 11 minutes before my battery runs out, so I'll kind of wrap up. So here you can see install patches automatically. Security, we want to do them immediately. Non-security, let's do them weekly on this at this time. So you could schedule these. So you could say, look, I'm going to do my patches every week on a Friday at this time, and then you can drill down into the vendors here, and you can see this list. It is very comprehensive of the vendors, and then the products obviously associated with all those vendors. So there's lots in it. So typically we see customers will automate it for security for their workstations, desktops, laptops, servers. You're gonna.
So you could have, I mean, in the ideal scenario, you'd have some test desktops that you would deploy to almost immediately, or within days of a patch coming down. You would then make sure that that didn't kill your machine, and then you'd set it to deploy the patches then a week later or something, wouldn't you, I suppose?
So that needs to get approved.
Unfortunately, the market dictates you have to be a lot more aggressive with that now, so you don't even get an opportunity to do tests.
And I don't think you can a lot of the time.
Getting 30,000 updates every Tuesday, then you just send them out.
But I think there's some good articles online around some best practice methodologies to adopt with regards to not just instantly installing everything that comes out on Patch Tuesday, so that you're then having to install everything on the hotfix Thursday, I think I've heard it referred to, when they release a patch and it breaks loads of stuff.
I think it's getting a lot better than it did. I mean, it used to be like years ago. It was a real pain, wasn't it, with patches, having to roll them back all the time.
I think it's just there's the complexity. It's not indicative of them doing a bad job. It's the complexity of what they're patching and all the potential interactions that software is going to have with everything else on the operating system.
Windows, isn't there? And that's
you're never going to be able to anticipate every single eventuality.
But that's the change that they made when they've gone to monthly patching. So now you don't get individual patches on Patch Tuesday. You're going to roll up all the patches that month. That means there's fewer combinations of different patches out in the wild, which should make Microsoft's testing
Make it easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the patching. There's in the policies there's also configurations for full disk encryption. We basically turn BitLocker on. You can see a compliance report. You can recover a password. We store them in our database or in the cloud encrypted in the database at the back end. You can see different events and things in here. Have I got till quarter past or when?
any time between 10 and quarter past will be fine.
Okay, cool. All right. So that was kind of the console. Hopefully you can see how simple it is to deploy. You can see actually now that this security appliance got deployed, so I can easily just manage my machines. I could even run a report. I could have a look at the security servers and see the load on them, see how many machines are connected to them. So these are the reports. You can schedule them. You can get them delivered by email. If I look at the security server status here, see that I've got 2. You'll see that some machines are connected to 1. The new one, I haven't changed the policies yet, so no machine's connected. It's got no issues. It's running. It's up to date. this gives you good visibility to say, well, I've got 3 actually, and they're getting a bit overloaded, so you'll see red overloaded or normal or whatever, so you can just deploy another one. So really simple to deploy another one. You can actually drill down and see which machines are connected to this one. So these machines are using that security server. I did a scan, I open a file, the actual analysis is being done on the security appliance. Okay, so any questions about the security policies? I've tried to cover a lot of information on there.
Encryption, is it your own encryption? Or is it,
We're managing Bitlocker. So we're using Bitlocker for Microsoft and FileVault for Mac. So for Windows, you need Windows 7 Enterprise and above. And when Windows 7 needs a TPM chip. But Windows 8, Windows 10, it's an easy win. You just tick the box and turn it on, and we manage the recovery. So also FileVault as well. We're increasingly seeing Macs. Even though a small percentage of organisation, they still need protecting. So we manage FileVault, and it's pretty simple as well. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? No one fell asleep, so that wasn't too bad. Okay. So just one. So I'm trying to think. So we've got some very good customer references on our website. We have from very small organisations to very large global organisations. A couple of big VMware ones. There's Mentor Graphics. There's some YouTube videos online as well. I'll send some links around to these. They talk about why they used Bitdefender and ultimately why they chose Bitdefender because of the ease of deployment to a very large environment. They had a VDI project. They looked at other products, and Bitdefender were the best performing products, reduced the impact in the environment. There's also Honeywell in the UK. I'm trying to think of a publicly facing one. We've got lots of customers. Obviously we can't talk about all of them. Credit Safe is a good one. They took the Elite suite, which is the tunable machine learning, the sandbox analyzer. Now they weighed us up against a number of other vendors that really focus on pre-execution and next-gen machine learning, and we won that based upon, again, the minimal impact on performance, but mainly on protection. So when they find a lot of malware during their testing, they're happy to speak to people. So if you want to speak to somebody, they'll have a phone call with you and talk about the challenges they had, and they've stood up and talked at some events for us and things. But we've got customers that we could put you in touch with. We've got lots of NHS, lots of financial organisations, no real vertical, a bit like the guy from Rubrik said. We're spread across from very small to very big. We don't really focus on a certain vertical or type of organisation. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much, Liam.
All right, thank you.